Hello, and welcome back to True Summer Knits. My name is Maddie, and you're watching True Summer Knits. And today, we are just doing a regular podcast episode, which we have not done in a while, actually. So I'm very excited to show you guys what I've been working on. Lately, I've just been doing some other videos, and at first, it felt like I didn't have much to show, and then now it feels like I have a lot to show. So this episode could be longer than usual. I'm not 100% sure. Also, another thing, I know there's like this weird shadow. Oh, there's a cat behind me. It's not what I was referring to. There's kind of a shadow behind me, and the lighting's been a little weird. It's currently raining, so there's no sun. But in the next episode, I'm getting another light to hopefully balance things out. So hopefully things will look a little bit better from now on. But yes, the first thing I'm going to show you is what I'm wearing. And it's also my finished object. I don't have too much to say about this because this is another something I've already knitted. It's my basic boat neck tank, which I will plug again, is available on Ravelry. And it's just the same thing, followed exactly to pattern. My first sample was knitted before I had a pattern, so stitch counts were like mildly different, but it was essentially the same. But this is knitted exactly to pattern. It's knitted to size small. I knitted a little shorter. I knit this thing in like 5 or 6 days. This was stressful for me because I actually knit this right before the pattern came out. I really wanted to have it done the Sunday that I said I was going to release the pattern, which was September 22nd, because I just wanted to have another sample to like post a photo of. I was like a menace that week. I was knitting nonstop everywhere we went. Like no matter what we were doing, I had to be knitting, and it was so stressful. My hands hurt. I was like stressed out because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this in time. And to be honest, it's hard to tell probably from far away, but if you look up close, I feel like you can tell that it's not necessarily my best work knitting wise. The I-cord is kind of messy. This also has not been blocked. I just have not blocked it, which is pretty unusual for me because I am not the kind of person that doesn't block things. I always block everything as soon as it's done. I don't even consider it done until it's blocked. But this one, I was just so ready to be done with it after I took photos of it that I didn't block it because I didn't have time to block it and take photos of it. And I didn't even weave in the ends because, again, I didn't have time for that. And then after that, I just wanted it over with, so I still have not done those things, which, you know, it is what it is, and I will do them, but I just want to kind of get away from that for a little bit. But this is done in blueberry ice cream, and fits me good. I like it, but if you want to hear more about the basic boat neck tank as a project, you can watch podcast number 8, which is like one of my least viewed podcasts, and I talk all about the sample and the pattern and everything in it, but I'll give you the basics. It's a summer top, but for me, I feel like it's a good fall basic to wear under cardigans or with jeans or things like that, but that's mostly because of the weather where I live. It's still in the upper 80s here. Right now it's a little cooler because it's raining, but it's still hot here, to be honest, which is getting kind of old. But anyway, start with the front here. You cast on for the straps. You do a couple of increases to shape it right here, and then you just cast on a bunch of stitches. There's not much shaping up at the neck because it's boat neck. Then you knit the front panel down. You do your increases for the armholes. Then you do the same for the back. It doesn't have those increases, so it's slightly higher in the back than the front, so that gives you a good fit. You do the same thing, you knit the back panel, do your increases, join in the round, and then you just knit stockinette all the way down. There's waist shaping in the pattern. It includes waist measurements in the pattern that I've drafted it to, so it gives you a guide like, oh, if my waist measurement is bigger or smaller than the one listed for my size, then I can do less or more waist decreases. And then it just ends with a folded hem. Even if you're not rushing, it's a pretty quick knit. It's done on 2.75 millimeter needles, and it's written for knitting for olive merino or cotton merino, but you can use any kind of yarn that meets gauge and has some wool in it. I wouldn't recommend like using the knitting frill of pure silk or like a pure cotton, because it's a very fitted garment and it wouldn't hold shape very well probably if you knit with something that didn't have that elasticity. So that is my second sample of the basic bow neck tank. If you didn't hear about this in my last video, it was meant to have a video. The video tutorial that I filmed didn't work out. I got that new camera and like the autofocus, I couldn't figure out how to make it work, so like half the footage was blurry. But what I think I'm going to do is, you can get the pattern for free on Ravelry, and I think in the spring, when it's more suitable for most climates, I think I'll re-record a new video and make a new sample and release it then for people who might want to knit it for their spring and summer knits. But for now, no video until the spring probably. I'm sorry about that. But other than that, I have 3 sort of whips that I'm going to talk about, and an acquisition, and then some plans that I'm going to talk about. I don't know how long this video is going to be again. I'm really not sure. But we're going to get into it with my whip that's been on the needles for the longest, and it's one that I'm kind of struggling with, so we will talk about it. Okay, so I don't know if this was even on the needles when my last podcast. It's been so long since I did my last podcast, but this is V.2 of the Hepburn top, and it's kind of, I feel like it looks good, but it's not what I wanted still. And it takes, I feel like when I'm in the past, when I've knitted something without a pattern, it really takes to, once you join in the underarms and you can try it on, to really tell if it's working out or not. And I'll show it to you. This is going to mess up my bangs, I already know it is, so if I look insane right now, I'm sorry. The armholes are kind of rolling in because it's not blocked, of course, but the biggest problem is that the shoulders come out too far, for one, and the armholes are too short. So I think the amount of ease is good. I think the armholes need to come in closer so that everything around the armholes just kind of folds in and like kind of goes baggy and weird. And I don't know, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do to fix it. This armhole has no finishing done. On this one I did a folded hem, which I think will work if I get the armholes to fit correctly. I think it would fit much better if it was in a little bit and the armhole was deeper. I really don't know. I don't know what exactly I want to do. I feel like I keep getting it wrong with this design. There's something really specific I want, and I feel like I keep struggling to get it. Let me take this off. So it's just been frustrating. I think around Saturday last week was when I was like, okay, this is not going to work. I've got to start over. And I just kind of put it aside, and I've been working on other stuff because it's been stressing me out. But I think the problem is just the size of the armholes and the length of the shoulders. But I don't know. I like the way I finished the armhole. I think it'll look better when it's blocked, but I basically just did a folded hem. Like, I picked up all the stitches, I did a purl round, I knit a few rows of stockinette, I did a surprisingly stretchy bind off so that it didn't cinch in. I did a regular bind off at first, and it just, like, it's not so much that this needs to be super stretchy, but it cinched in the bind off so much that it didn't fit perfectly when I sewed everything down. So, yeah, I just wanted the edges to be, like, invisible. I didn't want it to have, like, some kind of edging. I just wanted the edges to be finished. But, yeah, it's not fitting the way I want to. I need to really sit down, like, measure everything and decide exactly how I want it to fit. And then I'm going to start over. This is knit with Barocco Folio in, I'm not sure the shade. This yarn is discontinued. So if I ever finish this and make it into a pattern, this won't be the recommended yarn. I actually did buy another yarn to knit another sample with if I ever finish the first one, but I'll show you that when I get to acquisitions because it's a new yarn. It's an alpaca bamboo blend, which is really interesting. And I like the yarn, and I really want to have this finished, and I want it to exist, but I am just really struggling with it, and it's kind of frustrating me. There's like the picture that I'm like going off of that's like this Reformation design, and like the shoulders are done in a very specific way, and I want to recreate that but I just kind of keep missing the mark a little bit. But yeah, I thought I would have a lot more to say about this. I want to get back to it. I'd like to finish it. At this point, I don't know, it's just kind of feeling hopeless. I don't know if I can get the look that I want, but I also don't know if I'm just getting down on myself. I don't know. I'm gonna work on some other stuff that I want to, and try to take a break from this, and then come back to it eventually, because I just feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm looking at it too close and it's stressing me out, and that's just not a good environment for like inspiration or creativity. You know what I mean? So that's this for now. I know, well, hopefully soon I'll be able to get back to it and maybe I'll have a success, but for now it's just kind of falling flat for me a little bit. Other than that, I have 2 works in progress, and it feels really good to be working on something from a pattern that I don't feel so stressed about, because it was like I was working on that design, it was stressing me out a little bit because I just couldn't get what I wanted, and then I had to like quickly knit the second sample for my basic boat neck tank. So ever since my Paul sweater, I just hadn't been able to just like relax and knit something I wanted to knit, just because I didn't have time before when I was trying to knit my top really fast. I was having fun with the Hepburn top until I realized it wasn't working. So I cast on 2 things this week, and I've gotten a lot of work done on them, and I'm having a lot of fun with them. I'll show you the one that's got the most progress first. So this is the cumulus blouse. I am having a lot of fun knitting this. So this is knit in drops brushed alpaca silk. I'll show you it here. This is in the color Pacific Blue. It's this really nice, bright, fun blue. I like it, kind of like a cornflowery shade, but like a little brighter. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. If you've never used drops brushed alpaca silk, I actually am planning on, after I finish knitting this, I'm going to start with my budget yarn series. So I want to knit a whole project in this yarn and do a video reviewing it. So while we're on that topic, if you have any other budget yarns you want me to review, let me know in the comments. I plan on doing like other drops yarn, but I just want to knit projects with some budget yarn and try them out so that you guys can hear my opinion on them, see if they're worth it or not. So far, I'm loving this yarn. It's basically the equivalent of like 2 strands of mohair. The silk is equally as thin, but the alpaca just fluffs up and fills up a lot more of the gaps. And its color is beautiful. To me, it's much softer than mohair. I feel like mohair, for me, even the softest ones, feel very soft in the ball. And I'm not like irritated by mohair, but it's just a little less soft when you're wearing it. And I haven't exactly worn it, but this just feels much more plush than mohair. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It just feels like you can actually like squish this fabric. It's denser. I just really like it. I don't think it's necessarily a substitute for mohair. I mean, any garment where it's like just a mohair garment and you're holding like 2 strands of mohair together, you could substitute this for. But it would definitely change your gauge if you like held this with a fingering weight wool to knit something. It's not like a 1-to-1 substitute. I know there are alpaca yarns, like silk alpaca yarns, that are substitutes for mohair. I think on Wool Warehouse they have Fiber Spate Surrey Alpaca Cumulus, I think is what it's called. It's like a silk brushed alpaca, and I believe it's like an actual lace weight, so you can hold it with a fingering weight wool as a mohair substitute. I've never used it. I really want to. They have some pretty colors, but I haven't used it. But I know that some people are, I suppose, less sensitive to alpaca than they are to mohair. It's definitely a little softer, so I definitely want to try that. But this is kind of a yarn you can use all by itself. So I am having to do this a little different than the pattern. First, I'm just going to describe to you how this pattern is constructed. So it's a raglan. So you're casting on, initially it's kind of knitted like a cardigan because you have that V-neck. Some round neck raglans you can just cast on as a circle and work from there. But you cast on for front, the sleeves, and back all at once. So if you've never done a raglan, you basically cast on a certain amount of stitches and you divide them by section. So like the front sleeves, the back, and you have these markers set at the division of every section, and that's where you're doing your raglan increases. Another thing, if you've never done raglan, if you've never knit a raglan before, I wouldn't start with this project, with this pattern. It does not explain how to do the raglan. Like, I hadn't done one in a while, so I kind of like had to refresh myself on how to do it. And the way she writes it, she's written raglan patterns that are very clear, but this one, I just think she just assumes you know how to do it. Like, she doesn't tell you exactly where to increase, or like, I know to increase inside the markers, but when I first knit a raglan, I didn't know that, and this one does not tell you that. Like, it doesn't tell you to like move markers or anything, it just tells you to place them, and it tells you to increase the markers. But I feel like a beginner might get confused and like knit inside the raglan stitch or increase inside the raglan stitch. So just, if you're going to knit this and you've never done a raglan before, just know you're supposed to increase, I don't even know how to explain it, on the outside of the markers, if that makes sense. Not in the individual raglan stitch. So yeah, that was kind of a tidbit, but I was reading through it at first and I kind of like had forgotten how to knit a raglan for a second, and I was like, that sounds weird, and I was like, oh wait, no, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know, makes you sound kind of dumb, but I just forgot about it. It's been a while. But yeah, you're working the raglan increases for a while, for like a long while. You're also every other right side round, because obviously you're working back and forth flat for a while. You're increasing for the V-neck here. And then once you finally do all of the increases for the V-neck, that's when you join the round. You cast on a couple of stitches here, and then everything is worked in the round. And then that's a little bit after that, I think, is when you separate for the body and the sleeves. I've got my sleeve stitches on a stitch holder, and then after that, you're just knitting in the round for a while. I've got this much left, almost everything up until I joined in the armhole, mostly everything. I think maybe I had to join in a new ball of yarn like right before I separated for body and sleeves, but everything before that was all knit with one ball of yarn, and I'm working on the second one. I always like to go and knit my sleeves before I finish the body, so whenever I finish this ball of yarn, I'm going to go and knit the sleeves and then finish the body. I don't think I'm going to have a ton of body to knit because I don't like my tops to be super long, so I really don't think this is going to take me very long. It's really enjoyable to knit, mostly because of the yarn. Like, I always feel like if I have a pure stockinette project, I want to like really like the yarn because that'll get me excited enough to finish it. Even though I've been knitting a lot of stockinette lately, I've not found this boring so far, but it has started to be like my nighttime project, like when my husband and I are watching TV. Currently we're watching The Mentalist. It's very good, just because I don't have to worry about it so much, or I can do it without looking. I mentioned that I had to knit this sort of differently to pattern, and I'll tell you why. Because I did a swatch, and I confirmed by knitting some and then, checking my gauge on here. My gauge is off, and I like the fabric, so I don't want to change my needle size, but my gauge is 20 stitches per 4 inches, and the pattern is written to be for 18 stitches per 4 inch. So if you do that per inch, her gauge is 4.5 stitches, mine is 5 stitches per inch, which doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it's actually a big difference. And basically, I'll do the math for you. So the size I'd like to knit is extra small. If I divide the body stitches by the gauge, then the bust measurement for the extra small should be about 38 inches. But if I take that same size and divide it by 5 stitches, then I get 34.4 inches for the bust, which is much smaller. So you might think, like, go up a size or two, but for one, I'd already cast on for size extra small. I don't know why I did that, but even if I cast on the size small, it would be still too small, and if I cast on the size medium, it would be a little bigger than I wanted it to be. I really wanted to have the 4 inches of positive ease that she said there would be, or it said would be good for your size. So ideally I get somewhere between size small and size medium to create the extra small that I wanted. So basically I cast on for the size extra small. I began knitting it the same. I do the raglan increases, but when you are knitting the initial raglan increases, she has this 4-row repeat that you're meant to do all the increases for the raglan and for the v-neck. She has you do it a certain amount of times. I did 2 more times, so 8 more rows of increases than she tells you to do. And I put all these stitch counts that I had in my Ravelry page. So I don't tell you any instructions, but I'm like, oh, for this row 1 through 4, I did it 13 times, and these are the stitches I have on my needles, like divided into the different sections. So you can see the stitch count I get. And I'll tell you, that'll give me 38 inches at the bust, which is 4 inches-ish. I fluctuate from anywhere between like 32 or 33 and a quarter to like 34. So yeah, it'll be a good size for me. I've also heard that the cumulus blouse ends up they're always a little bigger than she says. So I think this will be good for me. I did the math, I know I'll like the size, and I checked and my sleeve counts will be the same size as the extra small should be and whatnot. So in terms of knitting it to the pattern, I didn't really do anything differently except knit those repeats 2 more times. Everything else is done the same, it just changes my stitch counts to something that will get me the fit that I want. Because I didn't want the fabric to be any looser, and if I went up a needle size, it'd be a little looser, and I really like the way it is now. It's very nice. It's like not see-through. Kind of looks see-through if you hold it up, but all that fluff filling in the gaps means that it's not. And I think this is going to look really nice on me. This is going to be a really nice color. This will be like a nice fall sweater to wear. I know some people knit these in like the spring or whatever, but it's still in the 80s here. It's not going to get down to any kind of colder temperature until at least later this month. So I think this is going to be a great item to have in my wardrobe. But yeah, it also is flying really fast. I cast this on 4 days ago. I haven't knit on it at all today. So I did all of this in 3 days. It was just really fun. I like doing raglans because like there's always something a little different to do. Now it's going to be a little bit more boring because it's just stockinette. But like I said, I really like working with this yarn. It's really enjoyable to knit with. It's so pretty and soft. So that's what is propelling me to keep knitting this. But yes, that is my cumulus blouse whip. And I have one more thing that I'm actively working on, and I will show that to you. I kind of cast this on a whim. If you've been watching my podcast, I've been knitting everything stockinette lately, and I was craving something textured, but I didn't really want to pick up something that was going to be a huge commitment right now, while I'm still kind of figuring out exactly what I want to do next, and gift knitting's coming up, and I've got to knit River's sweater for our anniversary, so I wanted something smaller, and I've been wanting to knit this top for like another fall top to wear under cardigans and stuff. So I cast on my twist loop top. These little tops are always very difficult to show, but you can see where I've done the initial cables, and now I'm working on the back panel. It looks so small because it's in rib. Everything is in 3x2 rib, except for the cables. Well, technically the cables are done in 3x2 rib, and then you just cable them, but you get what I mean. So this is knitted in sock yarn, actually, and you'll know this if you follow me on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, by the way, you should. Don't post there too often, but I post in my stories a lot, like about what I'm working on or plans, things like that, so you should follow me there. But this is knit in knitpicks capretta superwash. It's a fingering weight superwash yarn. It's got, 80% superwash fine merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. So it's got a lower nylon content than a lot of sock yarns, and it's really soft, it's really nice. I know some people don't like how superwash yarns feel. I love superwash yarn. I love yarn as soft as it can get, and it does have, I feel like I could feel the cashmere a little bit. Obviously there's not much, but I do feel like it's doing something. It's just a really nice yarn, and this is in Moonstone Heather. It's just a very lightly heathered gray. Like, it's barely heathered, but it is, just a little bit. It's a very bright, almost like bluish gray, in my opinion, and I really like it. I bought this initially for socks, but I wanted to cast on the twist sleeve top, and I wanted it in like a neutral color, and I was like, I have this, and I have not had any desire to knit socks lately. And she said it would be done with 100 grams or less. I probably will make it shorter anyway, so I think I'll be able to do this in 100 grams. I will make it work with 100 grams if I have to. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. The only thing I feel like knitting something in the same rib pattern all the way through is kind of has the same energy as just knitting stockinette. So I'm not bored, but I was having a lot of fun when I was doing the cables. And then now that I'm not doing the cables, it's a little less exciting. This is my first project doing like real cables. I've done like tiny cables before, but I've never done like large enough cables to actually need like a cable needle for them. I wasn't intimidated by them or anything, I just hadn't gotten the opportunity to do it yet. And it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. It's just something different. I feel like I'm using my brain a little bit more. So I cannot wait to finish this back panel, because there's no cables on the back, only on the front. So I cannot wait to finish the back panel so I can get back to knitting in the round. I still have like a good few amount of rows of the chart left, because a lot of the chart is just in pattern and then you go back to cabling, because that's how you make like the twists. So that's just a lot of the regular rib, and then you do the twist so it feels like the rib is like twisting around itself, if that makes sense. Because I just really want to get back to the cabling, and it makes me want to do something with either a lot of cabling, like where I cable pretty much all the way through, or I want to do some kind of project where the texture changes a lot throughout. But I'm just very picky with my patterns, and I feel like some of them don't really fit my style, which is the issue. Like, I don't really like those. I just feel like those big traditional sweaters wouldn't necessarily look good on me. I'm just discovering recently that like fitted things, or at least less oversized things, look better on me. So I'd like to find some kind of patterns with interesting texture to work on that changes throughout, because I think that would be really engaging for me to work on. But still, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I just am really excited to get in the round. Obviously, the purl or the wrong side rows don't differ that much from the front. It is a little more purling. I'm not one to mind purling, but because it's the rib, they're pretty much purling very similar amounts on the front or the back. But it'll be nice to get back into the round so I can do some more cabling, although there's really not that much cabling in this project. Like, you look at it and the cable is definitely the focus, but you only do a few rounds of the cables, and then you do a lot of just the 3x2 pattern, and then you do 2 more repeats of those cables. And those cables don't take long, they're pretty quick, and there's not that much of it. So if you're intimidated by cables, or you feel like they might take a while, this might be a good project, because cables go by really fast, there's really not much of it, and most of it is just done in the 3x2 pattern. But I think I'm hitting gauge. I did a gauge swatch, but I find it's really difficult to tell if you're on gauge when you're knitting in this rib, because obviously it contracts so much. I mean, looking at it and like stretching it out, I think it's gonna fit, but I did a swatch, I really couldn't tell what my gauge was. Like, if you stretch it even a little bit, you get a completely different gauge, so I really didn't know how to measure it. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to cast it on. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm knitting the extra small, and I feel like, I mean, maybe the superwash yarn will grow a little bit, even if it's like too small. I really don't know. I don't know. Looking at it, I feel like it's going to be fine, but it's just really hard to tell. How do you measure your gauge for rib? I don't know. Like, do you stretch it out all the way? Do you just stretch it out to 4 inches and measure whatever stitch count you have there? I really don't know. I am not confident, so I'm also excited to get to being in the round so I can try it on and just make sure it's working okay. But I don't know. I hope it does. But I do really like this yarn. I had never really thought about using sock yarn for camisoles before, but I think it's working great. It's feeling nice. I feel like it'll be nice against the skin, that like nice soft superwash yarn. Hopefully having some nylon content will prevent it from stretching out too much. I really don't know. But this is a fun experiment, so we'll see how it goes. But I cast this on the day before I cast on my cumulus blouse, so it's been like 4 days. I worked on a lot the first like day, and then I spent the next 3 days all working on the cumulus blouse to get to being in the round. And now that it's just stockinette, I'm working more on this during the day to try to get something going that's a little more engaging. And then I'm working the cumulus blouse by itself at night because it's just stockinette. I've never really been the kind of person to knit more than one thing at one time. I'm really more of a monogamous knitter, but I really just had the urge to have like these different projects cast on, and I'm glad I'm doing it. It's kind of nice to have like something, if you're feeling a little bored of something, you can switch it up. I think I'd be too stressed to have like more than this amount of projects on my needles, so I think I'm just going to leave it here. Also, I feel like if I had multiple projects on my needles, I would never get anything finished. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like every project would take a lot longer. It's another thing with, like, why I'm like, oh, I don't want to knit more than one or two things at a time, because I just feel like if I could be devoting all my time to one project, then I would get it done sooner. But if I am splitting my knitting time between all these different projects, then everything is going to take longer to finish. You get what I'm saying? So, 2 projects feel like the most amount of projects that I'm willing to have on my needles, and so far it's going good. And I'm excited to have this one too. Yeah, it's fun, it's simple. I think after I connect in the round, I'm going to go back and knit all the edgings. I think I'm going to do a modification that some other people have done. I'm not going to knit the rib or on the neckline. I'm going to do everything double knitted instead. I don't know, I feel like it looks nice without the rib. And then I think I'm also going to add some waist shaping, depending on how it's fitting, because I don't really like the baggy look that she has in her sample. I kind of like the more fitted look that people who have done waist shaping have with their finished piece. So that's what I'm going to do. But that is pretty much everything I have to say about my twist loop top, and that's both of my whips. I guess technically all 3 of my whips, because I still have the Hepburn top, even though that one has to get started over, but it is what it is. So before we get into my acquisition, I wanted to mention a upcoming plan that I have. So I mentioned in another video that someone very nicely on Instagram emailed me this big magazine of all these different vintage knitting patterns, and I talked about how I want to film a video knitting one of them. So I want your opinion on which one I should knit. I don't have the yarn in my hand, but I bought Knitting for Olive Merino in the shade Unicorn Purple to knit one of these tops and film the process of knitting it. And I just wanted your opinion on like what you think would look good in this yarn. So I'm going to show you the different patterns that I have picked out from this vintage knitting book and show them to you, and you can tell me what you're thinking. So for one, we have the Antoinette blouse, which was actually the pattern I posted that made the person message me and say I have this book of patterns, because it was in that book of patterns. It's this really pretty short-sleeved tee sweater kind of thing. It's got this cable on the neckline, which is really cool. Obviously it's a vintage pattern, so the patterns are very sparse. They're all written from the bottom up and seamed. I'm considering just taking all the measurements and the stitch counts and kind of rewriting the pattern to be from the top down, because I'm going to have to grade it some anyway. I don't know, I'm going to have to go through. It says it's a size 14, which I want to say is like a 32-inch bust, but it doesn't specify, obviously, other than that, and that's the only size. So I am going to have to go through. The gauge is 7 stitches to 1 inch, so that's 28 stitches per 4 inches. That should be perfect with Knitting for Olive Merino. And a lot of it's just in stockinette. So I'm going to have to go through and kind of see what I'm looking at, like actual measurements-wise. But I feel like this would be a simple top to maybe try to knit from the top down. I just have to see. I don't know. I feel like I could just kind of reverse, or like maybe basically take all the measurements, draw out like essentially like a little schematic, and just work from that. I mean, I know how to do that. I feel like it'd be simple, but I don't know. Either I'll do that or I'll just knit it bottom up, but the thing that stresses me out about knitting something fitted bottom up is just that I can't like really 100% be confident that what I'm working on is going to fit me the way I want it to, you know? But the Knitting for Olive Merino should work fine. The needle size they have written is weird. I don't really know what they mean, but I'm just going to use the needle size it takes me to get 7 stitches per 1 inch, which will probably either be 2.75 millimeters or 3 millimeters with the Knitting for Olive. So that's one of them that I'm looking at. As It's really pretty. It's just got those few cabled rows and the cable around the neck. And then it's got like, I think 2x2 ribbing around the cuff and the bottom of the shirt. So I really like that one. And then let's see what else we're looking at. I really like the Claire top, which is similar. It doesn't have any cables. It's just got this big band of 2x2 rib up at the neck. Or I think it's 2x2 rib. It looks like it. It might be 2x1, but you get the picture. So there's that one. And then there's also the Dahliette blouse, which is really pretty. I love the kind of puffy sleeves. And it's all over rib with, I don't know if I can look at the pattern. So it's sort of like a lace. You're doing these yarn overs. So I think there's like tiny eyelets in between all the rib patterns. So that's really pretty. And I really like the sleeves. And it's just kind of got like a boat neck or like a very simple neckline up top. And then the last one I'm looking at is another kind of ribbed top, the Adelaide top. So a lot of them are very similar, but I don't know. I want to do one of them on camera. I want to do them specifically in the Knitting for All of Unicorn Purple. So please tell me which one you think would look best, or which one would be most fun to see in a video. I'd like to give instructions on how to knit it yourself as best as I can. Just going to depend how it goes. I'd like to maybe grade them into a few other sizes if I can. Maybe not like a full size range, but at least a few, so it's accessible to maybe some more people. I'm just not really sure how this is going to go yet, as you can tell. It's going to depend when I get the yarn in and can sit down and try to figure it out. But I think no matter what, it's going to make for a fun video. So please, share your opinions with me. I'd like to hear them. But other than that, I have one acquisition, and I think we are done for the day. So I mentioned earlier that I bought some yarn to possibly knit another sample of the Hepburn top with, and like a yarn I could officially recommend, you know? This is the Hobby Alpaca Silk. It's a very nice yarn. It's if you think about it, it's very similar to the Barocco Folio, because that is an alpaca bamboo blend, and often bamboo behaves very similarly to like mulberry silk, which is in this one. So it's 70% alpaca, 30% mulberry silk, and it's just this very pretty lilac color. Which is, it's like a little darker than the unicorn purple that I'm buying for my vintage top. So it's a sport weight yarn. It says 1 gauge on here and it says another gauge online, but the gauge online, which is the same gauge I'm getting with my Barocco Folio, is 26 stitches by 36 rows or 39 rows. I think it's 36, because I think it's 9 rows per inch. That's the exact same gauge I'm getting on my Barocco Folio. So I think this will be a pretty yarn to use, and if that pattern ever works out, then I can use that yarn for recommended yarn, since the other yarn is discontinued. But even if I never get to making that sample, there's plenty of things I can use a sport wheat yarn for. Maybe I could even knit like another vintage inspired top, or I really am into those like fitted short sleeve sweaters, like those vintage tops. There are like modern day equivalents to them. I really like them. I want to knit more of them this fall because I just feel like they're very practical, especially the short sleeves. Because like I said, it's warmer here, and I am a warm person. I get warm all the time. So if this doesn't end up getting used for the Hepburn top, then it might get used for something like that. But we'll see. I did get 5 of these. I wasn't 100% sure how many to get. I just got the same amount that I have of the Barocco Folio. But that seems like plenty for like any kind of short-sleeved top that I might want to make. But yeah, I don't know when that's going to get used. Because like I said, I've got gift knits to do. Got to work on River Sweater. I'm making a scarf for my mother-in-law for Christmas. So yeah, I want to do a video soon talking all about my gift knitting plans. I'm just going to have to tell anyone that knows me in real life not to watch them. But that is all for today. I will see you guys again soon with another podcast episode. I think my next video might be this week because I want to go ahead and do my September pattern roundup. I kind of was off schedule this month, so normally it probably would have been this video, but I really felt like it was time to do a podcast video. So yeah, I think I will do another video this week just showing you all my favorites that came out in September. But thank you for watching. And if you are not subscribed and you like me or you like my videos, then subscribe. Love to have you here. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.